Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we find you. Cardinal Hill Wealth Management here. I'm Jesse Harris.
Robert Hill, nice to meet you.
And we're just finishing up a series with Keith
Fortier.
the magnanimous Fortier, not to be confused with Fortier.
Fortier.
Not that fancy.
And so we're doing a final in our 3-part series here on kind of the financial ramifications, benefits of adoption. And Keith is an expert on that because he has adopted 3. And so he's got to benefit from some of this. And also he'll probably be able to fill us in on some things that we don't quite know.
Yeah, and while also already learning from y'all some of the financial things we might have not known while we were adopting.
So got it going. Man, let's get it kicked off. Kind of just the how-tos and all the nitty-gritty that we haven't talked about so far on that, and then we can kind of go into the financial side of things. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, it's great.
Sound good?
Great. So yeah, this is a big topic, and to be honest, we're still learning about some of the financial pieces of this. We'll go over some of the most exciting or biggest opportunities that we see for planning in the space. Keith has used a number of these, things himself, but it's a big topic. So at the end of the day, if you'd like to learn more about something that we don't do a deep dive on today, feel free to reach out to us. Keith's organization is also coming up with like a white paper or something, Agape, so we'd be happy to connect to you if this is of interest. So, I don't know, do you want to just start off with maybe some of the bigger opportunities, and I can just briefly review the smaller ones?
And I'll just add in real quick also that statistically it's like 35% of all people would check a box saying I've considered adoption. But it's around 5% of the general population who end up adopting. So there's actually this massive gap between the number of people who consider it and the number of people who actually make it to the finish line. And the biggest barrier, the number one thing that people would cite as the reason why they don't, is the financial questions and the financial what they consider to be risks or confusion or so number one is the financial piece is what people wonder about the most. And then number two is just navigating. There's so many different ways and options and confusion in this space, but between the finances and the confusion, a lot of people don't make it to the finish line.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully this will help mitigate some of that.
Absolutely.
Right? And just so people know out there, Robert and I love taking phone calls just to help people work through situations like this, whether you are a client or not, because we believe in this cause so much. So really, 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 please don't hesitate to reach out to call if you see this. You can just look us up, Cardinal Hill Wealth Management, Cardinal Hill Wealth Management.com.
This planning might feel like hell.
Okay, so gonna hit a couple things. There's been actually a big sweeping change kind of throughout corporate America as adoption has gotten a bigger voice. There's a lot of companies that are willing to put money forward to help offset some of the cost of adoption. Now, we have hit earlier in some of the videos that not all adoptions cost out-of-pocket dollars, right? Like Keith has helped us kind of understand that. The foster to adopt really doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
In fact, you end up getting paid by the state.
Yes.
Right? And college education is paid for.
And health and care costs, you have state health insurance all the way through to 26. So medical, even if unforeseen medical things come up, it's always covered for kids who are adopted through the state.
So this is talking, I think, more on the private side of things. But if there is cost associated with the foster to adopt, I bet that there would be a case to say some of these could get employer sponsored if your company does it. So the number one thing is just go ask your HR department. Do we have a program that helps cover adoption costs? They do have to be qualifying expenses. Again, this is where it can get a little technical. Having a good CPA can help you a lot on that. There's companies that are offering $35,000, like they're covering $35,000. That can cover lodging, travelers, a lot of things it can cover to help offset those costs. Another really big point is the federal adoption credit.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be pretty small, but it's gotten pretty substantial. So it is going to be, I've got to look at my notes just to make sure I get it right because they just upped it. So for 2023, it was 15,950, and it has gone up just a little bit this year. And no, so sorry, it was 14,000 last year. It is now 15,950, and that is per child per person. So it not per child per family. So you want to make sure that you are going to have a good CPA, or if you're doing it yourself, you just really need to make sure that you're adding this onto your taxes. A credit is a dollar for dollar benefit, so you definitely want to use that.
Absolutely, and even for us in our adoptions, we're not in the highest tax bracket, so that tax credit came over the course of multiple years. So we've had higher refunds for sometimes 3 or 4 years. I think it's up to 5 years. That, but yeah, so no matter what tax bracket you're in, it makes a difference.
Yeah, credits are always the best for your taxes.
Yeah,
there are phase outs on your Maggie in regards to how you are calculating. So if you get above around 240, that's when the phase outs start to take place. So you just want to be aware of that. And that's where you can do some fun things to get those credits with some financial planning. If you're pushing on those limits, you can do a lot of good strategies to get you down for a year to use those credits and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to add anything to that as I've talked about it?
No, I think that's really great. I think another one we'll want to talk about, and I'll let Jesse do most of the talking, but just we've done a couple videos on the Secure Act 2.0, which is a sweeping set of changes. And one of the changes has to do with the ability to pull money out of a retirement plan as a non-penalty event. I believe it's $5,000 per taxpayer. So a husband and wife could together pull $10,000 out. Now
Per child.
Per child, right? That is obviously a nuanced question that you'll want to talk with your financial planner and CPA about, because you'll have to think about, sure, you're helping solve the adoption problem, but you might be reducing your retirement savings, which is also a part of your planning. So I think that brings up, we want to, at Cardinal Hill, we definitely want to help people do more adoption, but we also, it's a part of your financial plan, which is complex. So you're just going to want to factor all this in. That being said, I think it's a wonderful new opportunity for some people that they may not have known about.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's always living in the tension of a bit of life of there's always going to be costs, I think, to all the good things in life.
Yeah.
And saving a child is minor, in my opinion, in the sense of if you have to work an extra year, it's just good to be aware of what you're doing, I think. But there's times where I've not been aware of anything that I'm doing on the right side of things, and it always has worked out. So hard work usually compensates for some of those things too. Just to be clear too, going back to those credits, I forgot to mention, if you get a benefit from your employer, you cannot double count costs to use the credit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you just want to make sure that you're not trying to cheat on an expense. So let's say you had to fly to Utah to pick up a child that you had been longing for as a family. You get the child and the flights cost you a total of $2,000. Your company gave you $2,000 for the flights. You can't then go say this is qualifying you for the credit. Okay, so you do get to offset the income that it's going to look like coming from your company, that $2,000, but you don't get to say, oh, and then I get to apply that credit. Okay, so you don't get to double count, but you still get a good benefit from it. So just want to make sure you're aware of that as well.
I think that's some of the major, there's other tax benefits. There's obviously, if you adopt a child and it's a part of your family, you might, depending on your, is it MAGI or MAGI, Modified Adjusted Gross Income, you might qualify for just the additional $2,000 a year tax credit for having a child. And so Jesse's got a big family. You get quite the...
You're 6, 4,
6. So I only have 2 kids, which means I only get a 4th, so I'm losing money. I should have some more kids. So that's definitely something to factor in. And then there's also, Keith, this, you might be a little more aware of this than we are. There's also state, you know, welfare plans of state support options that vary. I know California has an extensive program.
Yeah.
I'm not aware, honestly, what's in North Carolina at the moment. But again, that's kind of a plug to work with an organization like Agape or wherever you are, because at the state level, they're going to be able to navigate those state-specific programs and maybe tax breaks and things like that.
Yeah.
Their public welfare funds pools are available. And so, any comments to add
absolutely.
there?
And I think even on a local level, there is communities of people, foster, adoptive parents. There's local supports. There's local nonprofits that want to remove barriers, that help people get involved. So on the government level, on the nonprofit level, there's a lot of different options. So whatever it looks like, get plugged into the community where you are and find out the local resources. But also just even along everything that we were just talking about, adoption can range anywhere from $0 for kids waiting in county custody. I've heard as high as 70, 80,000.
Oh, yeah.
But there are a lot of people, nonprofits, even individuals who are so passionate about adoption that they don't want financial reasons to be a barrier. There's whole nonprofits that exist to make sure that finances are not the reason why people are unable to adopt. There's grants. I could list 7 or 8 grants right now that all throw anywhere between $2,000 and $15,000 towards people's adoptions. There's nonprofits I know of that help crowdsource adoptions. It's a nonprofit I work with often, or point people towards often, that a lot of people do golf tournaments to raise money. They're like, well, instead of golfing to raise money, why don't we serve vulnerable elderly people in our community and raise money? So it's like they do fundraisers as service projects are the fundraiser. So it's like we're serving the elderly community while ensuring adoptions happen at the same time. So they're trying to button it up on both ends. And they raise millions of dollars for adoption every year by serving elderly people in the community. And and it's all from people showing up saying, hey, I want to adopt. I don't know how the finances are going to work out. They say, great, let's help. Let's find people in the community to serve. Let's get people to donate to the service projects and your adoption. And that's just one nonprofit. I mean, there's so many good people that want to make sure everybody who has a heart to adopt is able to do so.
So Keith, let me ask you this: what's the best way to get a hold of your organization? Is it online? Is it what?
Online, agapeofnc.org. You can go online. You can find my email right on there. I think you can find my phone number, my cell phone code right now if you've got questions. But this is really the bottom line is that not even just Agape. I collaborate with a lot of other nonprofits in the community, and if it's not us, then I want to point you towards the right. So Agape is not doing private adoptions right now, but I partner very closely, collaborate with all the other nonprofits in the space that are facilitating adoptions, that are funding adoptions. And our heart is just to make sure everybody who wants to be involved is able to get involved in the right place. That's the right fit for you and your family. So you can reach out to me. I'll point you in the right direction.
And we'll try to be good about updating this in the description of the video over time. So when the white paper is available, maybe you'd be willing to share that, and we can try to put links to the URLs to websites and things. That way, if you just want to look at the description, hopefully that'll be available as well. That's great. A couple other things that we're not going to really go into today, but just to have a comprehensive treatment or semi-comprehensive, maybe as a last resort. Another option is to consider debt financing. May not be optimal. I think a lot of the things that we want to talk about first are definitely pathways you could start first. In entrepreneurship, they talk about the 3 F's of financing. So friends, family, and fools. So trying to get just your network. So I think we talk about the golf tournament. That's one example. But if you just make people aware of your needs, sometimes people that might be willing to help. And then the last thing, just wanting to discuss, so how do you finance it is one part of the equation, but the other part of the equation is total cost. And just something to consider, there's a pretty big difference in cost, as I understand, between domestic and international adoption. So if you're thinking about international adoption, there could be additional travel costs, there could be additional costs of home study, lodgings, and various expenses. As I understand it, it would probably be much higher on the international side.
Yeah.
Is that
on
fair?
average, like 20,000-25,000 more.
Okay.
International. On average.
Yeah. And so, could you remind us also, Keith, roughly, not to put you on the spot, as I recall, you said that there was a pretty big difference in the number, just right here in the state of North Carolina, of kids that need to be adopted or fostered versus the number of families. Wasn't that something like...
Yeah, I mean, the number of licensed foster homes is very low, and to adopt a waiting child in North Carolina, the process in North Carolina is you have to become a licensed foster home.
Okay.
And then those children who are waiting for an adoptive home can be placed into your home, and you are considered their foster home for a 6-month period, and then the adoption process starts. But there's, in North Carolina, I think it hovers around 2,000, the number of kids who are waiting for an adoptive home. And just even the process of becoming a foster parent, in the confusion, I feel like a lot of times you call the counties and you don't get straight answers. It's hard. But the confusion is a big barrier, because people are asking, like, why do I have to become a licensed foster home to adopt? But that's the process in our state. Become a licensed foster home. They match you with a foster child who needs to be adopted. But there's very, very few families that are coming forward to adopt those children. And the ones who do come forward, they're really wanting to adopt young, like 1 or 2-year-olds, which the process of a child becoming legally freed for adoption sometimes takes 2, 3, 4 years. So most children who need to be adopted are in their school age years or into teenage years. But I mean, if you wanted to adopt a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old, it'd be pretty easy to be matched with a child waiting here in the state.
Wow.
And you also could become a licensed foster home and say that you want to, foster newborns who look like they are going to ultimately end up being adopted. Because there are many newborns who come into care and they know with like 90% certainty that this child's going to need to be adopted.
Wow.
Which is heartbreaking in its own sense, but there's so many different ways to foster and adopt locally, and there's so many great agencies that are doing private adoptions, facilitating that, and there's great organizations locally that are doing international adoptions from countries all around the world. So however people want to be involved.
Whatever flavor, there's something here local.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
There is people right here in our community who want to help. So. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm going to end as long as everybody's good ending. So I just want to say, a couple things of why we are doing this at Cardinal Hill. We want people to understand that we can make a change. I think when I've helped people retire for 10 years now, and one thing that I've noticed is the folks that retire that still have a great sense of purpose and giving back helps bring so much purpose is what I've seen. Those people, they thrive in life. And so we're really wanting to help people have outlets that say, I want to thrive. And maybe you're not going to say, I want to open up my house, but finances make a big difference. Living generously is something that we all three subscribe to, because we believe that it is just, we feel like we are really blessed to bless others. And so we want to get this information so that people can know, not only is it great to change the Wake County area, which is what I'm hoping for, at least right now.
That's good.
But then it is just, your life is so much more full in your heart level when we're doing things that are outside of yourself. So that's why we're pushing them out here. We believe we can change the world, starting in Wake County. And so we are honored that you watched the video. And reach out to Keith if you need anything on this front. Thanks for watching.
Awesome. Thanks.
So, I think we've talked about this. This is just a little clip that I forgot to say. I just talked about being generous. Cardinal Hill wants to be generous to Agape. And so I'm not exactly sure on the dollar amount, but we are going to write a check because we want to support Agape.
Oh, thank you.
Because we really believe in Agape. We really believe in you, and we really believe in the mission that you guys have.
Yeah.
And so we love being generous as well. Hopefully soon we will also have, like you talked about, there's upper stream, there's midstream, and then there's bottom stream.
Yeah.
Right.
I really took that and thought we can hit all three. And so
That's good.
hopefully we've got an organization that's going to be coming in soon. That's more midstream as well.
Yeah.
Helping some teenage girls.
Amazing.
And so I'm really excited about it.
That's so good.
But we love being generous,
It's good.
and Cardinal Hill is going to back it up.
Well, like you just said a minute ago, that you believe we can change Wake County and change North Carolina. That's why Agape exists.
Yeah.
We exist because we believe that there can be a better future for our community right here. And we don't want to just be talking about it. We want to be doing it.
Yeah.
So thank you that Cardinal Health is doing this, giving, supporting what we're doing, and creating conversations where people want to live generously and change their community.
Yeah.
So thanks
for coming on, man.
Oh, I love it.
Thanks, man.
Good.
All right.